जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानन्दन व्रज जानरञ्जन यमुनातिरवनचारी। यशोदानन्दन व्रज जानरञ्जन यमुनातिरवनचारी। रञ्जन यमुनातिरवनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. So we're reading from the 11th canto, Chapter 7, chapter entitled Lord Krishna Instructs Uddhava, text number 30. Tvam hinah pruchyatam brahman atmanyanandakaranam bruhi sparsha vihinasya भवतः केवलात्मनः। त्वं हिनः पृच्छतां ब्रह्मन् आत्मन्यानन्दकारणम् ब्रूहि स्पर्शविहीनस्य भवतः केवलात्मनः। त्वं हिनः पृच्छतां ब्रह्मन् आत्मन्यानन्दकारणम् ब्रूहि स्पर्शविहीनस्य भवतः केवलात्मनः। त्वं हिनः पृच्छतां ब्रह्मन् आत्मन्यानन्दकारणम् Hinasya Tvam hinaha pruchyatam brahman Atmanyanandakaranam Bruhi sparsha vihinasya Bhavataha kevalatmanaha Tam hina pruchyatam brahman Atmanyanandakaranam Bruhi sparsha vihinasya Bhavataha kevalatmanaha. What forward meaning? Tvam, you, he, certainly, naha, to us, prachatam, who are inquiring, Brahman, O Brahmana, Atmani, within yourself, Ananda, of the ecstasy, Karanam, the cause, Bruhi, please say, Sparsha Vihinasya, who are devoid of any contact with material enjoyment. Bhavataha, of you. Kevalatmanaha, who are living completely alone. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: O Brahmana, we see that you are devoid of any contact with material enjoyment and that you are traveling alone without any companions or family members. Therefore, because we are sincerely inquiring from you, please tell us the cause of the great ecstasy that you are feeling within yourself. Purport: the word Kevalatmana is significant here. Unless one has practical realization of the Supreme Soul and the individual soul, who reside together within the heart of every living being, it is very difficult to artificially adopt the sannyas order of life and travel without the association of wife, children, or other family members. The nature of every living being is to make friends with others and offer his love to a suitable person. One who has realized the Supreme Person is satisfied to always carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart as his constant companion. Unless one has realized that Krishna is one's only true friend and that Krishna is within one's heart, one will remain attached to the temporary relationships of the material world. Short but beautiful purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvashe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchagalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langhayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So, we're continuing our discussion from this section of Srimad Bhagavatam. A very beautiful section has begun from this chapter, which is called as the Uddhav Gita. And here we find Maharaj Yadu, he met a Brahmana and he's asking him a few questions. And we'll find that this Brahmana will talk about his 24 gurus, which he has, uh, which he has learned various lessons from. Interestingly, Maharaj Yadu was the first and eldest child of Maharaj Yayati. And Yadu was the one who refused to take his father's old age in exchange of giving his youth. There was a specific reason why he did that, because he wanted to have the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the right manner, because Lord Krishna was going to appear in the Yadu dynasty. If he prematurely got old, then how could it happen? And he wanted to live through the phases of life so that he gradually gets detached. And now we find that he's desiring what this Avadut Brahmana has. He's desiring happiness in his life. He's desiring true spiritual satisfaction in his life. And in this particular verse, Yadu, he is observing this Brahmana and he is talking about two specific characteristics which this Brahmana possesses and which Yadu Maharaj has noticed. The first characteristics he says is, you are devoid of any contact with material enjoyment. Sparsha vihinasya. We have this verse in Bhagavad Gita, yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayana evate. He says, generally people are looking for two things in this world. The first thing they are looking for is pleasure, and the second thing people are looking for is shelter. When a soul is not completely pure, then there are various objects of shelters which one tries to have in one's life, through which one feels that one may obtain pleasure. But neither one obtains pleasure nor one obtains shelter. And therefore, Prabhupada would quote this very beautiful song of Vidyapati, where he says, Tatalasaikat bari bindu sama sutamittaramani samare tohe vishari manata he samarapala abu majo habu kana kaje Madhava hama parinam nirasha. So he says, I tried to offer my life, I tried to offer everything to my friends. Here in the purport is talking about friends, to my wife, to my society. And I tried to obtain some happiness from there by giving myself totally. But what I received in return, he says that the experience was like putting a drop of water in a desert. Now, what happens when you put a drop of water in a desert? It evaporates instantly. He said, that was my experience. And therefore, I was looking for happiness, but what did I get? Madhava hama parinam nirasha. He says, I got nirasha, I got unhappiness, I got dissatisfaction in my life. Vidura is also asking the same question to Maitreya in the 3rd canto, 5th chapter, text number 2. He says, Sukhaya karmani karoti loke natei sukham vanyatuparamam va vindeta bhuyastateva dukkham yadeva yuktam bhagavan vatinna. He says, people are looking for happiness, they are doing activities to gain happiness, but what is happening? They are getting distress. And they are not able to relieve themselves of the distress also. Generally, when one engages in any kind of sense gratification or contact with the senses, one desires some kind of enjoyment. But the result is received is totally opposite. And therefore, Krishna is very clear in telling about yehi samsparshaja bhoga. As soon as you touch, you have given birth, or you have given you have conceived suffering within. You have conceived suffering now. Now the suffering, whenever the delivery time will be there, the delivery may come in one day, the delivery may come in 1 month, it may come in an year, or it may come at the end of your life, or in the next life. But suffering has to come. So Krishna is very clear, dukkha yone evate. Just as every product in this world has got an expiry date, similarly every happiness in this world has associated suffering with that. Therefore, all the realized souls from Srimad Bhagavatam, they are very clear when they talk about material enjoyment. Even we see 5-year-old Prahlad Maharaj, he's talking about that. Tasmat priya priya yoga sayoga janma shokagnina shakala yonishu dhayyamana dukkhaushadam tadavi dukkhamatadhyaham. He says, what is this? I am trying to resolve one misery, another misery is coming up in my life. And generally, that is what people try to do. Tasmat priya priya viyoga sayoga janma. With happy circumstances, they want to unite, and with difficult or sad circumstances, they want to disunite. But he says, I tried to do that, but it's not happening. What is happening? I try to connect myself with happy circumstances, but I got connected with unhappy circumstances. I thought to disconnect myself from unhappy circumstances, but I got connected with different circumstances only. So he says, Shokagnina, and therefore what has happened? A fire of lamentation has arisen in my heart. Sakala yonishu, and not only in my heart, it is in all the living entities' heart. Dhayyamana, it is burning me. So when devotees talk about the nature of the material world, all of them have the same realization. Although they may not have experienced it, some of them have experienced, some may have not. But still they have the same realization. And what is that? This world is a burning place. Samsara dava nalalida loka. And sense gratification also burns. That is also the realization of our devotees. Even Bhakti Vinod Thakur is saying that. E vishaya hala hale dibanishi hiya jale mana kabhu sukha nahi paya. He says, E vishaya, this sense gratification, it is like halahal, it is like a poison. And what is it doing? Diba nishi hiya jwale, my heart is burning day and night because of this sense gratification. And I tried to obtain happiness, but mana kabhu sukha nahi paya. My mind never got happiness. So this is one thing which people are looking for in this world, contact of sense enjoyment, due to which they think that they will get happiness. But is Brahmana is free of that? That is the first thing he is free from. We see that you are devoid of any contact with material enjoyment. And the second thing he says, you are traveling alone. Now generally to gain happiness, people want some kind of companionship. And loneliness has become a very widespread epidemic in today's day and age. One time my spiritual master was giving a class for all the brahmacharis. And he started the class with a statement. And the statement was, welcome to the world of loneliness. So even brahmachari, like he's talking about it here, that sannyas order of life is not easy. Obviously, brahmachari life also in that sense. So it is very difficult to artificially adopt sannyas order of life and travel without the association of wife, children and other family members. Nature of every living being is to make friends with others and offer his love to a suitable person. So, in today's day and age, this loneliness, it has become a widespread disease, although people are connected. Although we are connected all over the world. In previous time, it was not like that. People were not connected with each other so closely. If they had to communicate with someone, they had to write a letter. And then the mail would go, it would reach in around 3-4 days or even 10 days or even a month. By that time the problem would have turned to another level, or the problem would have been solved also. But then and nowadays sometimes we are so much into communication, I find it sometimes to be too distracting. Just like day before yesterday, I was some particular thing came up, and I spent quite a lot of time in kind of communicating and sorting things out. But then yesterday morning I realized that all I did day before yesterday, all the communication, it was useless. I just could have waited. Then a lot of problems would have been, or my time would have been saved. And yesterday I could understand it in the morning. Still in the daytime I spent again some amount of time in that. So generally we feel that being connected with others, we can solve the problems in our life. But actually problems in our life can be solved by connecting with Krishna. So this one is just side point. I just got remembrance of that. we try to sometimes solve problems by lengthy conversations with people or spending a lot of time, but it doesn't result in anything. We have experienced that. But for pure devotees, because they are connected with Krishna, they may speak even one sentence, and that may inspire the person for the rest of his or her life. His Holiness Devamrit Maharaj says he never had a personal interaction with Srila Prabhupada. But one time he was in the book's room, and was doing something with regards to the books printing, and he saw Prabhupada came there, and all devotees offered obeisances to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada glanced at him, and he just smiled affectionately, and he like kind of nodded as if whatever you are doing is right. And Devamrit Maharaj said he did not speak anything, just that nod. It was sufficient for me to let me go on for the rest of my life. Just one nod of a pure devotee. Prabhupada told to Alfred Ford, just one line, where is Henry Ford now? And that one line changed everything. We may try to coerce or force someone, inject Krishna consciousness in someone's heart and mind by our forceful preaching, and that person may also not come to Krishna consciousness. We may also get frustrated. But we see, because pure devotees are connected with Krishna, therefore they can have a very great impact. So therefore, before connecting with the world, we need to understand that we need to connect with Krishna. Therefore, His Holiness S.P. Keshav Maharaj, he says that in an year, in order to connect, he says we have to disconnect. So in 1 year, we have to try to disconnect for 1 month. In 1 month, try to disconnect for 1 week. In 1 week, try to disconnect for 1 day. And in 1 day, try to disconnect yourself for 1 hour. Disconnecting in the sense, disconnecting from all material things. And in that disconnection, we find our connection with Krishna. Because when we disconnect ourselves from the world, when we are alone, we'll come to the point of alone. But when we disconnect with Krishna, then we can connect with the whole world in the right manner, and then we can contribute tangibly to the mission of Srila Prabhupada. But if we don't disconnect with the world and just try to connect ourselves with people of this world and try to make friends, those friends cannot give us happiness. Those relationships cannot give us happiness. We may be having, nowadays in social media, they have followers. Facebook had friends, I guess. I don't know, I'm not into all of that. Instagram has followers, right? YouTube also has subscribers, right? So followers, subscribers, friends, all of them cannot give any happiness in this world. Sometime back there was a girl in India who had got several million followers, and 1 million of her followers got reduced and she committed suicide because her friend following or whatever got reduced. So she had her entire life based on that. So when we base our life on temporary connections with this world and try to establish connections with those people and try to find satisfaction through those relationships, they can neither satisfy that person nor they can satisfy us. Because one soul cannot completely satisfy another soul. That is never possible. Because there is no relationship of two souls. It is like, how can this hand please this hand? This hand cannot please this hand. When both these hands come together and they put the food in the mouth and it goes into the stomach, then when the stomach is satisfied, then all the parts of the body are nourished. Therefore, Narad Muni is saying that verse, Prano parhara chayathendriyanam tatharanam sarvatam achyuteja. He says that when we serve Krishna, then all living beings can be satisfied. In the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj also it comes. Yasmin prasanno bhagavan gunair maitriyadibhir harai tasmai namanti bhutani nimna apa imaswayam. So if we desire to make friends with people of this world, Yasmin prasanno bhagavan. First we need to please Kishore Kishori. First we need to please Krishna. When we please Krishna, naturally the entire world will become our friends. Dhira dhira janapriyo. But we will try to connect with friends all over the world and make friends. Like this person was there, Dale Carnegie. He wrote a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he committed suicide due to lack of friends. So the greatest paradox of his times. Because he did not connect with Krishna, because he had a superficial idea of how to make friends. So therefore, connection with Krishna is most important in our life. And therefore, His Holiness Bhurijan Prabhu, he takes a retreat every year in Govardhan. And he has named that retreat as Alone with Krishna and Together with Devotees. That is the title of that retreat. So here, because he talks about traveling alone. So this Brahmana is doing both the things which are contradictory to material happiness. He is traveling alone. People think that by having friends we can be happy. Second thing, he is devoid of any contact of sense enjoyment. People think that by sense enjoyment I will be happy. He is doing opposite of both things, still he is being happy. That is why Yadu is surprised. Hey, you are not following the natural path. How are you happy? Actually, this is what is the reason for happiness. Because he is connected to Krishna in the right way. So when we are alone and when we are connected to Krishna, then only happiness can come in our life. Yesterday Navin Krishna Prabhu was telling me that, Prabhu, I'm going to Canada now, and Shivalla Prabhu also has gone. He said, you are alone now there. If you want, you can just have someone along with you. And then I was just thinking that we can never be alone in our life. Either of the two we have to associate with if we are alone. One of the persons whom we can associate with while we are alone is our mind. Second person we can associate with is the Paramatma. If we associate with the first person, who is the mind, which is uncontrolled at the current stage, all we will do in that disconnection in being alone is creating havoc in our own lives and in the lives of others also. Therefore, contemplation without right sadhana will always lead to devastation in our life. Therefore, when we are alone, the right sadhana is very much important. And therefore, when we are talking about being alone, there was one person who was alone, Vishwamitra. 60,000 years he was alone, trying to unite with Krishna or unite with whatever he thought of as the supreme. But somehow, who came? Shakuntala came. Shakuntala came, and he was like, his mind got distracted. He was not happy being alone. At the same time, we find Haridas Thakur, he was also alone. And when Maya Devi herself came, he said to Maya Devi, come here. But he was totally satisfied in himself. Yastu atmaratir eva syad atmatriptasya manavaha atmani evacha santushtas tasya karyam na vidyate. Therefore, at sadhaka stage, this verse talks about a pure devotee, one who is totally fixed in his own self. He has nothing to do. Therefore, Haridas Thakur had nothing to do. He was totally peaceful. Maya Devi also came, he was not affected. But for a sadhaka, when temptations come of wanting him to make any contact with sense enjoyment, then he or she should also try to follow the example of Haridas Thakur. Therefore, every time it is not that when we act, then only results come in life. There is a great power in doing nothing in our life. And doing nothing means what? Resisting temptations. That is what Krishna talks about in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. In the Sthita Pragya section, he talks about it. Vishaya vanivartante niraharasya dehinam raso varjam rasopyasya param durshta nivartate. He says, first disassociate yourself, first disconnect yourself. If you don't disconnect, then the higher taste will not come. And therefore it is said, sense gratification and Krishna consciousness, they go ill together. It is like mixing some particles of sand in sweet rice. If we are eating sweet rice and if some particles of sweet sand are there, sweet rice will not taste delicious. So if we want to get bliss, real bliss in Krishna consciousness, first we need to try to be alone with Krishna, not our mind. That we alone with Krishna. And after that, being alone with Krishna, we can then, when we associate with devotees, then it will have a very greater impact. There was one devotee. She later became a devotee. Her name was Pingala. She was a prostitute, and she was also alone. She was looking for some companionship, and she was so distressed. Like every day, she would look for customers who could come and enjoy with her, and by that, she would get happiness. And any other day, as usual, this will come in the 11th canto itself. Avadut Brahmana. This Dattatreya will only tell about her. She is also one of his gurus. So Pingala was like, why no one is coming? Why no one is stopping? I want to enjoy. I want to enjoy. And she wanted some friends. She wanted some companionship. But after some time, she thought, what is this? Whom I am looking for? And suddenly the realization dawned on her. Actually, the realization dawned because Dattatreya, this Brahmana, Avadut Brahmana, was none other than Dattatreya. He was in her compound. And because of the close proximity, she got that particular, because of that association, she got detachment. And she says a very beautiful verse. Through that, in that detachment, that beautiful verse comes in, and she says, Santam samipe ramanam ratipradam dukkha pradam nityamimam vihaya akamadam dukkha bhayadi shoka moha pradam tuchhamaham bhajednya. She says, I was such an ignorant person, adnya, ignorant person. Santam Samipe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was residing closest to me, who is residing closest to me, who can give me great happiness, who can give me great joy, who can give me great opulence. Ramanam, Ratipradam, Vittapradam, he can give me everything. And not for one day, not for 2 days, not for 1 month, not for an year. He can give that for the whole life. Nityam. But what I have done? I have rejected him. I have rejected him. And what I was looking for? Akamadam. I was looking for lovers who will satisfy me and who will only give me 3 gifts. And what 3 gifts these people will give me? Dukkha. The first gift is dukkha, unhappiness, sorrow. Second gift, fear. Third gift, lamentation. These 3 gifts these people were giving me, and I was looking for them. I was chasing after them, leaving aside the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she was alone with her mind, looking for someone. But then she changed her consciousness and she became alone with Krishna. And in that loneliness also, she found the greatest happiness. And therefore, that particular chapter, the last verse of that chapter says, Asha hi paramam dukkham, nairasha paramam sukham. It says that the greatest happiness is detachment, and the greatest misery is attachment. And then he says, becoming detached from her so-called lovers, Pingala very happily went to sleep. When we are attached, our sleep is also lost, our happiness is also lost. But when we are detached, we can sleep in the night also, and when we are awake, we can contribute also in the right particular manner. And we find Srila Sanatana Goswami, he was also alone in his actually, for all the 6 Goswamis, if you find, quite interestingly, they would each sleep under different trees every single night. Nowhere it is mentioned that they would all come and unite and sleep in a single tree, under a single tree. They would not do that. Obviously, one tree may not have that many places to take rest, but although they would sleep under different trees, they were alone, but they would come together. When in the daytime, they would come together for discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. They were alone with Krishna, but again together with devotees. So alone with Krishna doesn't mean that we don't take devotee association. Devotee association is the most important in our lives. But the fact is that when we are alone with Krishna, that loneliness with Krishna, that is not loneliness actually, that can give us some of the greatest realizations in our spiritual life. Prabhupada, he was also alone in Vrindavan. And sitting alone in Vrindavan, what is he writing? He's writing his Vrindavan bhajans. And coincidentally, interestingly, in those Vrindavan bhajans, he writes how again this society, friendship and love. What is it? It is nothing. They are just a list of various names. It is gone. Where is my family now? Where is everyone now? Nothing is there. I am alone here in Vrindavan. But I was connected with Krishna. But this entire Vrindavan bhajan is about detachment. from everything that is material. There is one chapter also in Srimad Bhagavatam, right, in this 11th canto. Detachment from all that is material. That there is a chapter. I don't know which. This it comes ahead. 9th chapter. Detachment from all that is material. That is the title of the chapter. So Prabhupada also had that phase in life when he was alone with Krishna but experiencing the greatest ecstasy. Because when you are with Krishna, you cannot experience unhappiness or sorrow. But even you are in the midst of 100 people, you may feel lonely because you are not with Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is the only person whom we need to please and need to connect with. But unfortunately, what happens is, when there is a time for us to connect with Krishna, like chanting the holy names, we are chanting superficially, but internally we get disconnected from Krishna, and we are again in our own world, society, friendship, and love, in making friends or in thinking about our friends and family members, because of which we lose that connection with Krishna. When we are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, again we may be absorbed in thoughts of some other place. So again we lose that particular connection with Krishna. But when we try to connect with Krishna in the right manner, and recently we had Gaur Purnima, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, it embodies this being alone with Krishna to the topmost perfection. When Mahaprabhu was in Gambhira, he was alone, but with Krishna. And what kind of ecstasies Chaitanya Charitamrita Antilila describes. Sometimes Mahaprabhu would be inside his room and scratching the walls with his nails and banging his head against the wall in separation from Krishna. He came as the embodiment with the bhava of Srimati Radharani. And we find the gopis and Srimati Radharani also, they are alone. They are not having Krishna, but they are remembering Krishna. In their loneliness, in that separation, that is the highest ecstasy. So in material world, this loneliness is the greatest misery for people of this world. But in spiritual life also, when a person is lonely, when devotees are lonely, when Srimati Radharani and the gopis are lonely, they are not having Krishna, they are hankering for Krishna. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is not having Krishna, he is hankering for Krishna. He Deva, he Daita, he Bhuvanaika Bandhu, he Krishna, he Chapala, he Karunaika Sindhu, he Natha, he Ramana, he Nayana Abhiramam, ha ha kadanubhavitasi padam drishorme. Mahaprabhu is calling out the names of Krishna. When will I see you, Krishna? And my life is a waste without you. Na prema gandhosti darapi me harau krandami saubhagya bharam prakashitum. When I'm crying, I'm just showcasing my false affection for you. But actually, if I was actually loving you, I would not have kept my life alive. How am I living? I'm living my life like an insect. How am I living without you? I don't even have a drop of love for you. So Mahaprabhu, in his great ecstasy, in his separation, he's calling out for Krishna. And in that separation, he's feeling union with Krishna. And that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us. Ashlishya padaratam pinashtumam adarshana marma hatam karotuva raga marga bhakti loge kar. This raga marga, this mood of the gopis, it is this particular mood of separation where we serve our spiritual master, where we serve Krishna in separation. And in this separation, there is the greatest happiness, which Mahaprabhu himself exhibited. He was crying in separation, torrents of tears. Even Ramananda Rai, Swarup Damodar, they would just say one verse, and with that one verse, Mahaprabhu would just keep on thinking about that particular verse, and whole night he would spend. In Srivasangan, in his earlier Leela, he was with the devotees chanting holy name. That again, it was also the highest mellows. But the pinnacle of that was when he was alone and relishing the mood of separation in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So in our sadhaka stage, when we are with the devotees, we can relish that mood of separation or mood of uniting with Krishna. But when we are alone, then that separation should kind of give us a feeling of great hankering, that I want to go to association, I want to go to take darshan, I want to meet Krishna. Therefore, when Ramananda Rai asks, when Mahaprabhu asks to Ramananda Rai, what is the greatest separation? Then Ramananda Rai is replying, separation from devotees. So first we feel separation from devotees, then we feel separation from Krishna. One time one of my friends, he asked a question to one of the sannyasis. He asked the question that, my spiritual master, he left this world, and devotees told me that after a few years, I will after a few years or after some time, you will feel very calm, you will feel very pacified, don't worry about it, because as soon as that event had happened, he was very much affected by that particular thing and not understanding. Devotees told him, don't worry, that feeling will go away. And then this devotee mentioned to that sannyasi that, but Maharaj, this feeling is not going away. I'm feeling that the feeling for the spiritual master is there only, like that particular pain is not going away. And then the particular sannyasi started laughing. And he said to him, when Krishna left Vrindavan, it was not that the gopis and the Vrajvasis felt separation for 1 day or 1 year. The separation was for their whole life. And it was not that the separation was reducing as the days were reducing. The separation was increasing. And he told, just as the rains, when they come, they nourish the earth. So he said that tears of separation which are there, which come in a devotee's life, they nourish the bhava and they nourish the bhakti in a devotee's life. So that separation which you have, if you find Srila Prabhupada disciples, 50 years of separation, but what are they doing? They are remembering Srila Prabhupada. And in that remembrance, there is this union. So therefore, you see, Prabhupada disciples, they had one joy in their life when Prabhupada was there. And that joy was, we want to see smile in Srila Prabhupada's face, smile on Prabhupada's face. That, Prabhupada, I do something very nice, I do nice book distribution, and Prabhupada smiles at me. And they are very happy by that. But then when Prabhupada departed, that one joy, that single joy which they had, that was also lost. Now the only joy is, I have to serve my master totally without even knowing or without even having to see his smile. What a kind of dedication, what a kind of sacrifice is that. And that is what is the highest separation. That is what is the highest form of being alone with Krishna in the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which he came to give us. And in that separation, when we live our life, in that separation from Krishna, from devotees, from spiritual master, we live our lives, that life can be a very perfect offering to Krishna. And in that offering, we can find ourselves coming so close to Krishna that whether living, whether dying, it will make no difference. And that is what is Mahaprabhu's greatest gift. That is what is Prabhupada's greatest gift to us. So these are some thoughts. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Take yellow mic, you can take yellow mic.
The separation will never subside. In fact, it increase. But it come to the level of plateau where there is a constant pain, and we have to do your service in that constant pain of separation with the one hope that when I leave the body, maybe Guru Maharaj will come one time in front of me. Maybe Prabhu's Guru Maharaj is also not there. So that pain is like very powerful pain, but come to the plateau. Yes, that's what I was appreciating. My second, Prabhu, as you mentioned that devotees either have two options, either associate with the mind or associate with the Paramatma. But correct me if I'm wrong, at sadhaka level, it might be difficult to focus on Paramatma pressure for me. So focusing on the service given by spiritual master is very important. An example, Arjuna asked Krishna in 4th chapter, Kamyanam karmanam Krishna, punar yogam cha samshashi, polo yashriya retorikam, Krishna, please tell me what is better, tanme brhojanishitam. And then Krishna says, Sannyas karma yogasya nishreyasya karaubo. Tayostu karma yogash. Tayostu sanya karma yoga vishishyate. And also in the 6th chapter, Arurukshru Muner Yogam Karma Karana Uchita Yoga Arudachata Sheva Samakarana Uchita. So a person who is at the level of the meditating on Krishna or associating with Paramatma, definitely that consciousness or that level of bhakti or that level of sadhana is better. But the person like me you cannot focus on Paramatma, is it okay to focus on my service and how to increase my service, how to improve my service? Is that a better meditation? What do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. When I was talking about mind and Paramatma, I was even too specific. So meditating on Paramatma means what? Meditating on, we cannot just meditate on Paramatma in the heart. Meditating on, in fact, Paramatma inside is the super soul, Paramatma outside the spiritual master. And when we meditate on them is meditating on their instructions. Therefore, when we are meditating on the spiritual master, then we have to meditate on spiritual master's instruction, meditating on the service. That is also a very nice meditation which we can have, because Prabhupada always had that meditation. How can I serve my spiritual master? How can I serve? How can I serve? So this is the perfect meditation, Prabhu. There is nothing higher than that. And that meditation on the spiritual master or the service given by spiritual master, for it to remain consistent, we need to again and again take inspiration from the association of devotees, from scriptures. So come back to them, go to your service. Like for your service is book distribution. So like when you go alone, you're also alone in one sense, right? Alone with Krishna, alone with Paramatma, and alone with your seva. So when we are alone, then whenever the time comes, okay, my batteries are getting discharged, again come back to association, getting discharged, again come back to association, or read scriptures. And just like sometimes I've found devotees like the books are not going, and they are feeling a lot of frustration. So they themselves take the books and start reading. At least I will get, if no one is taking, at least I will take something in my life. So yeah, when nothing is there, then we ourselves take in, and simultaneously we keep on meditating on how to expand the service as well, because that is also one particular thing. And how recently we had His Holiness Badrinarayan Swami Maharaj leave this world, and he was of this, that his only thought was, how can ISKCON grow, how can ISKCON sustain? Now we have very less disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So how will it go forward? So younger devotees should also come. They should also take some kind of responsibility, which we have taken. So definitely service has to be in the forefront in a devotee's life. There is no compromise to that.
For example, Akinchanandas Babaji, he was chanting every day like 12-15 hours in front of deities. And for few of the disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada complained that Prabhupada is not doing anything, he's just chanting in front of deities, and you're asking us to go out and distribute books and do the gardening and farming. And that, yeah, sure, if you can do that, you can also sit there. You know.
Yes, definitely. If we can do that, we can sit there. But in current day and age, it is quite difficult. So therefore, His Holiness Indradumna Maharaj says, work now, samadhi later. So for us, service is only samadhi. Prabhupada himself said, I myself am not retiring. Why are you wanting to retire? We find none of our acharyas having that mood. We find none of our disciples of Prabhupada having that particular mood. So why should we have that mood?
Thank you for your class, Prabhuji. I was thinking I would just kind of share a personal experience or personal thought, is how, like when in the Nectar of Devotion, people use the word happiness, right? And Prabhupada says there's 3 different types of happiness. One from the material happiness from Brahman, associated with Brahman, happiness in Krishna consciousness, right? So personally, this, like, if you if I see a pig and it's eating stool and it's with its kids and everything, of course that's not permanent happiness or happiness in Krishna consciousness. That's the happiness on his level. But if I tell him, you know you're not happy right now, he's going to be like, are you crazy? I got everything I need right here. Get away from me. Don't disturb my mind. So personally, I'm trying to remember that the people that I preach to, they have material happiness. It's not that they don't have happiness. They have a happiness, but it's just not permanent. It's a mercy from Krishna for them to get an experience. And for me, I have to try to remember that, not to disturb their minds with whatever level I'm at, and to try to prepare myself for people who can appreciate whatever I can share with them, but at the same time, not disturb their minds with their temporary happiness, So I was wondering if you have any thoughts about that.
Even speaking, I was just remembering Prabhupada in one purport he says that it may be that while enjoying sense gratification there is some happiness. He says it may be that there is some happiness, but that feeling of happiness is the greatest enemy of the spiritualist. He says like that, something to that effect. So when people think that they are having material happiness, so that is not actually happiness. It is just the pleasure, the dopamine effect which they are feeling, contact of senses with the sense objects. But it is ultimately going to lead to misery. Like he says, Ramani jana sanga sukham ja sakhe charane bhayadam purusharthaharam. One feels that there is a pleasure in enjoying woman. He says, but that pleasure, where it will lead to charame, at the topmost level it will lead to fear. Charame bhayadam, it will only give you fear, nothing else. So,
see, my thought was how, Prabhupada says, Nectar of Devotion, he says, happiness in Krishna consciousness analyzed in 3 different sources. He has divided happiness into 3 categories, which are 1, happiness derived from...
Okay, so Prabhu, when it talks about nectar of devotion, there are 3 levels of happiness in that. One is called as Sukham, Aishwaram, and there is another, the third thing. So just one thing. So when he talks about material happiness, it is about the facilities that we receive through the practice of devotional service. Like for example, are we getting nice prasad because we are connected to Krishna? So that is what happens. We like get some material facilities because of being connected to Krishna. We are staying in such a big temple hall, deities, very nice everything. So that is the material happiness which he talks about. And then there are siddhis which he talks about, and then there is spiritual happiness. So happiness comes at all levels by practicing devotional life. That is what nectar of devotion talks about.
From what I'm reading, it says, he's saying there's happiness that's material, but it's still because of the English language. The word happiness is used, but it's still happiness. It's just not eternal happiness because there's a material happiness.
So see, Krishna also talks about mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, happiness. He talks about that. Still he says that the world is a dukkhalaya. The world is an unhappy place. Why he talks about it like that? Because as you said, the happiness is not permanent. It is temporary. So from the strictest definition, it cannot be called as happiness. Is it?
See, that's the thing and I'm only sharing this because it's important to me that people understand. When Prabhupada says the entire cosmic manifestation is unreal, and then persons say, no, it's real, but he used the word unreal in order to it means like a mirage in the desert.
Yeah, so it is real, but it is illusion.
But if we say there's happiness, but it's just a thing of semantics with the words, because there's material happiness and then there's spiritual happiness.
Yes.
But if we say there is no happiness, of course, we have to, for me, personally, I feel that we have to explain the word, like the happiness that's material, which is happiness, but it's not permanent. It's called happiness, but it's not permanent. And then there's
Prabhu,
happiness.
Actually, in the real sense, it is not happiness because it is not connected with the soul. It is connected with the body and the mind. Therefore, it looks like happiness. So, see, if we want to understand, we have to see what the acharyas have told to us. So, acharyas and Krishna both talk about it in a very, very straightforward terms, that this material world is not a happy place. Why do we begin our day with samsara dava nallida loka? Why do we begin our day talking that this material world is a blazing fire? And if we are not feeling the fire within ourselves, we are not feeling the fire of material world, there is problem in us. There has to be fire.
Well, of course, but my point was not that. My point was the semantics.
You are
semantics.
talking about, while explaining to people, we should talk about this is material happiness and this is spiritual happiness.
I'm just saying, I'll just speak for myself. I shouldn't say I'm not saying what other people should do. I'm just sharing a thought about the clarity of the word happiness. That the word happiness, when we say there is no happiness, then of course we understand that means it's not permanent. But semantics as far as the word itself, if I'm speaking personally, if I say my friend's not happy or experiencing happiness because he's not connected with Krishna consciousness, then because of the word happiness and the definition, it's a material word, it's a material definition. So I have to really kind of like explain to the persons that, there's a difference. Because if I say there's no real, it's not real, the word real means eternal.
Correct.
So there is a temporary happiness and there's a eternal happiness, and I have to be able to, even for myself, to understand, else it's very frustrating.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, I totally understand. For when we are talking with new people, then we need to tell them about different grades and levels of happiness. Like the first kind of happiness is called as sensory happiness, which is like when our eyes see some nice object, when our ears hear some nice music. So that is one level of happiness which lasts for a short while. Then there is something called as mental happiness on a mental platform, which lasts for some more time. Then there is a higher level of happiness which is called as intellectual happiness. For example, somebody is playing a chess game. Then we don't know if we don't know chess, we don't understand what are they feeling happy about. But they are feeling great joy in that. If somebody is doing some computer coding, there are hours and hours they are into it. They are feeling some joy in that. So that is intellectual happiness which may last for some more time. Then there is another level of egoistic happiness. Like for example, some person has got his or her name in Guinness Book of World Records, and they may feel, oh, my name is there. Egoistic happiness. But again, as you said, all this happiness, they are happiness, but then this happiness are temporary. So therefore we don't, because we are talking in Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore I was talking about this. If the same talk has to be given to new people, then we talk about, yes, there are happiness. But then you have a better option as well. You have a better option, and that is spiritual. So this is how we present the case to them. Does that make sense?
I'm glad I was honest with you because you broke it down. I needed to hear you even explain that to me because that was beautiful. That was perfect. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Jitendra, something.
The example given is material happiness is nectar in the beginning and poison in the end. And spiritual happiness is poison in the beginning and nectar in the end, Shreya and Preya. So they can't conceive of it. Prabhupada said sense gratification, that's all they know. But when they become discouraged, then they look for different venues of happiness. And hopefully they get one of Prabhupada's books.
Yes, Prabhupada.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Pause here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवत पुराण की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, संवेद भक्त वृंद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल.